Government of the Town by Seamus Heaney. The fully exposed poem. In spite of a period of castigation about the necessity for intelligence and irony, poetry in English has not moved all that far from the shelter of the romantic tradition. Even our self-mocking dandies pirouette to a narcotic music. The dream's the thing, not the diagnosis. Inwardness, yearnings, and mergings of the self towards nature, cadences that bring its spots of time. In general, the hopes of poets and readers still realize themselves within contexts like these. We still expect the poetic imagination to be sympathetic rather than analytic. Intellect still tends to summon its rhyme from Wordsworth's pejorative dissect. I presume, however, that Sagittal Section, the earlier of these two books by Miroslav Holub, is a title which inclines positively towards the knife of intellect, although it is interesting that Sagittal Section was a phrase not to be found in my OED. Instead, there was Sagittal Suture, as if the English language itself was working against the Czech poet's endeavor, preferring ideas of knitting and junction to those of splitting and cutting. At any rate, the given phrase meant the median anterior-posterior suture between two parietal bones on the vertex of the skull. So a sagittal section, at the cover illustration of a bisected skull enforces this, involved opening up what is closed at this line, a surgical inspection, a scientific point of view. This is hardly surprising considering that Holub is chief research immunologist at the Institute for Clinical and Experimental Medicine in Prague, and as Leslie Thomas observes in his introduction, Holub the poet and Holub the scientist both share a professional attitude. It should be said right away that the book delivers what the title promises, a laying bare of things. Not so much the skull beneath the skin, more the brain beneath the skull. The shape of relationships, politics, history, the rhythms of affection and disaffection, the ebb and flow of faith, hope, violence, art. It's a very nimble and very serious anatomy of the world, too compassionate to be vindictive, too skeptical to be entranced, a poetry in which intelligence and irony make its presence felt without displacing delight and the less acerbic wisdom. Although this is Miroslav Holub's first book to be published in the United States, many people will know the work already from the Penguin Selection published in London in 1967, translated by Ian Milner and George Theiner. Since then, two more of his books have appeared in England, and his name is now confidently and properly invoked by people in search of those exemplary poets who vindicate the utile dimensions of their art without betraying their obligations to the dues. There's something tremendously capable and good-humored about the work, a high-spirited distrust. It has in it all the worn-down truth to life of the disillusioned man, but it also has a contrary and hardening vision of a possible good based upon optimism about decencies and impulses in the usual life. It is at once down to earth and wide open. At the moment when it reduces things to their plainest and boldest dimensions, it can offer a sense of release and a new scope. The earth is turning, says the pupil. No, the earth is turning, says the teacher. Thy leaf has perished in the green, says the pupil. No, thy leaf has perished in the green, says the teacher. 2 and 2 is 4, says the pupil. 2 and 2 is 4, the teacher corrects him. Because the teacher knows better. This is neither tricksy nor outraged. There's no relish in Hollywood's exposure, more concerned that the true shape of things should be common knowledge. In some of his most approachable poems, it's as if he's just checking the reader's equipment for survival, ticking off a list of unspoken truths, but taking no credit for having that full list naturally at his disposal. I believe him when he says, I like writing for people untouched by poetry. For instance, for those who do not even know that it should at all be for them. I would like them to read poems as naturally as they read the papers or go to a football game.